from Brisbane, Australia. This is episode 74 of The Normal Blokes, a podcast dedicated to improving the competitive 40k experience. I'm Dineeth, and today we've got two very special guests, and we're talking Marines. So, about a week and a bit ago, we had a small RTT in Brisbane, and I've got the lovely gentleman who came first and second. So, Hayden Walduck coming in first place. How you doing, man?
G'day. Thanks for having me.
And we've got Mr. Stephen Wade from Grapple Factory. How you doing, bro?
Hey, what's happening?
Yeah, so it's good to have you guys on. I know a lot of people are talking about different archetypes and stuff of Marines. We've got some really interesting things happening where we live in Brisbane, and these two players have done really well. They went 3-0 with some interesting Marine lists that we'll go into. They're not all salamanders, don't worry, but none of them are actually. And we'll go into it, and I'll talk a little bit about the Dark Angels list that I ran as well, building off, what Aaron Green's been talking about on Art of War, some really cool stuff. So, but yeah, how you guys going? Thank you for coming on this fine Sunday. How you doing?
I'm hungover.
Makes two of us, mate. So, so yeah, it's good to have you boys on. Steve, you haven't been on the show before. Just tell everyone a bit about yourself, how you got into the hobby, your history in the hobby, and what you're up to these days.
So I started playing competitively probably at the start of 8th for a bit, and then towards the second half of 8th, when Marines got like really fucking crazy, I stopped playing competitively. And then the start of 9th, I sort of made a decision to try and get back into it and maybe have a year or two of playing as hard as I could. And that led me from playing two armies that don't actually interact in the game, and that was fun. So I was playing Nids and Custodes, and just like teaching and myself and learning about how the game works without like trying to blow stuff off the board. And then now I'm back to playing Space Marines again.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Did you find your time when you played Nids and Custodes, the second you went back to Marines with the training wheels off, could you just do so much more?
Oh man, it's like I don't think people appreciate how much the Marines actually have to offer. And the only way I sort of got that was by playing lists that had to play the mission exclusively.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really interesting. A lot of people talk about gravitating towards armies that have a lot of inherent power, and you've gone the other way. You've played on hard mode for a bit, and then you've built up your skills, and now you've gotten the prize at the end, and you're just stomping with it. That's awesome. So
yeah,
sorry, you go.
Well, I just on that, I think it's a lot of people play their armies on their own, so they're just playing lists that are just shooting and fighting, and they're just running at their opponent, and they're not really thinking too much about the decision-making process on the other side of the board and how the way they interact affects the other person's decision-making. Mm-hmm. And if you're just playing an army that shoots really well and fights really well, then I don't think you ever really actually learn how the game works and how the game flows, and how you can sort of beat people by moving and having threats rather than having things that just shoot and kill.
Yeah, that's it. It's really good points there, and I know we'll definitely go into that when we talk about your lists and your games. And Hayden, back again on the Marines, mate, but something a bit different this time, hey?
Yeah, I can't remember what I was playing last time. Oh, that's right, it was
You were playing the
Imperial Fist.
Yeah, and now you've moved on to the Iron Hands, hey?
Yeah, I'll say the same thing I said on the WTC podcast I did. I have like a little wheel from my Twister game, and I just write the fucking chapters on it, and I just spin it, and whatever it lands on, that's what I play for an event.
So, well, I wonder if you'll get something like Black Templars next time, and we'll all have an easier run. We'll see.
Or you just wait, mate.
Do I have to give you the Adam Cavalieri challenge to make you play Templars?
The Adam challenge.
Yeah, but yeah, so you went into this event with Iron Hands. Tell us a bit about why you, aside from spinning the Twister wheel, what things did you look at thinking that they'd be good?
Well, because most lists now have the Selfless Healer Apothecary, I could take the Iron Hand benefits of all the stratagems and relics and whatnot, and not have to double dip and make something redundant. Mm-hmm. So I could put it as a successor chapter of Iron Hands and not really lose much. The only thing I was really losing is Overwatch on 5s, which nothing really overwatches extraordinarily in my list. And then double wounds for vehicles on the damage chart. But I found that wasn't really coming into play in my practice games. So I switched over to a successor. And I was running them with Born Heroes and Whirlwind of Rage. So Whirlwind of Rage is exploding 6s in combat for the first round. And Born Heroes is like Space Wolves plus 1 hit if you charge or heroic intervene.
Yeah, nice. So you're kind of playing like Space Wolves Light in this whole army, right? Like you've kind of got both the benefits that Wolves get, but you're playing Iron Hands. Just tell us a bit about your army and just go into, what units you had, and then we'll do the same with Steve's White Scars. So go for it, Hayden.
So it's pretty much running with my theme of 2s. So 2 Intercessor squads, 2 Eradicator squads with the assault rifles, 2 Plasma Redemptive Dreadnoughts, a couple of characters on bikes, so a Captain and Chaplain on bike. And then we break away from the 2s and just go into singles. So we got a single Suppressor squad, a single 5-man Blade Guard squad, an Apothecary, and a single Vanguard squad, all with jump pack storm shields, and a mix of hammers and chainswords.
Yep.
To round out the list, there's also an assassin in there.
Cool.
Starts as the Calidus.
Yeah, nice. So tell us a bit, like you've got a lot of units that come in pairs, then you've got these single kind of like key units that do certain roles. Tell us a bit how it looks on the table and how it plays on the table in those missions.
Yeah, it comes down to what we're playing against. So sometimes I get a bit of value out of protecting things like my troops, like my intercessors. Other times my Redemptors need a bit of protecting, so they sort of hide amongst the back and just act as like a counter charge and shooting platform. Eradicators do Eradicator things. Vanguard Bomb drops in or moves and charges stuff, typically with the +2 from the Chaplain litany. But yeah, it just synergizes quite well on the table. It moves up as a pretty singular little ball, like sitting in the middle of the table and stretching out from there. And yeah, it sort of controls and bullies the table for the primary.
Yeah, nice. And it's definitely got the durability with like the Super Apothecary, and the cool thing is with this list, like all your intercessor units and stuff, they just punch on really hard as well, right? Like they're no joke.
Yeah, and being Iron Hands, you got 1 CP strat to 5 up Feel No Pain a unit.
Oh, yep.
Which yeah is brilliant.
Yeah,
so now that your Vanguards have lost the ability to transhuman, giving them a 5 up after save also lets them operate outside of the bubble of the Apothecary. They can just run away and go kill stuff.
Yeah, that's really potent, because they're now 2 wounds, right? So that's a really pesky profile to try and blow through. You've got your Invo or 2 up armor if you've got Storm Shields, and then you've got your Feel No Pain, and then you're just not killing models.
Yeah, and typically when you're charging stuff, you want to consolidate to use terrain to your advantage, so you can either get in terrain and be sitting on 1-ups in terrain.
Yeah, that's pretty strong. Yeah, wow. And Steve, you've taken up White Scars. When I looked at your list, I just saw there's just damage everywhere. But tell us a little bit about your thinking, your thought process, putting a list together, and how it kind of played on the table.
G-Dub, when they wrote the Space Marine Codex, decided to include a warlord trait called Rights of War, right? Which basically gives all core and characters OBSEC.
Yeah.
And then also, Space Marines being Space Marines means you need like 4 CP to function in the game. Now you get stuff back. So I was like, well, what's the point of taking troops? Because by the time you've taken like 1 to 3 troops, you're 300 points down on your like output efficiency, right?
Yeah.
So the way my list was built, so I had I've got a chaplain running around with the Plume of the Planesrunner, which gives all infantry +1 to advance and charge. That affects infantry, not core. So in my sort of brick, I've got a 3-man assault centurion blob with flamers. So now those assault centurions are going 6 inches plus an advance, and then they can advance and charge with assault weapons. And then in that brick, I've got 5 Blade Guard, 3 Blade Guard, and then a aggressor squad, 5-man aggressor squad with the boulders. Then I've got my captain with the Teeth of Terror and a jump pack running around with the Rights of War warlord trait. and then I've got all my fast shooty stuff. So I've got 9 attack bikes with multi-melters and 11 plasma inceptors. Yeah, so really the way the list is designed, there's like a brick element to it. The brick being all the infantry that's super hard to shift, that gets stratagems that can be interacted with sort of differently. So your Gravis, you can give them a +1 save against 1 damage, so you can put aggressors in cover, and if anyone shoots them with a 1 damage weapon, you can get them to a 1-up save. You've got your Centurions that just, if you put them in cover, they're a 1-up save just because. The Blade Guard, they get transhuman, they've got the Storm Shields, they've got all that good stuff, and then you've got an Apothecary following them around, giving them a 6-up Feel No Pain. So that brick is like a really good sort of bully ball to control the board and to sort of dictate how people are interacting with my side of the board. And then the 9 attack bikes. So I went with attack bikes over Eradicators, just because the speed, man. Like, attack bikes are 165 points for a unit compared to 120, but they go 14 inches and can they auto advance 6. And White Scars have a couple of strats that let you advance and shoot. So all of a sudden now you've got these ridiculously fast melter platforms with small arms on them that are core, so they become obsec in the aura, they get reroll 1s, and they interact with the Apothecary 2 running around, which are really hard to sort of play against and to zone out and play around. And then the Plasma Inceptors, just Plasma Inceptors, man, like ridiculous efficiency for the points cost.
Yeah. Oh man, like I ran a single unit of 3 multi-melter attack bikes, and I also want to triple down and run 3. Like, they're just so good.
They're too good, man. They're too good. And really the way the list works is it doesn't want to be going to the center, or at least going to the center first. In all my games, I really wanted to be going second, so my opponent could start overreaching and pushing and sort of breaking their own army up for me to drop off the board. Yeah. So I think that's probably a difference between sort of mine and Duck's list. With the White Scars, though, they obviously get to advance and charge. They get to advance and shoot without penalty assault weapons. You've got strats where you can fall back and shoot. You've got fall back and charge just inbuilt. So, the White Scars, like, in my opinion, is the most stupid chapter tactic you can pick, just in terms of the army shoots, it fights, and it's fast.
Well, you're just peeling away the core rules of the game at that stage, aren't you? Like, you can advance and charge, you can advance and shoot without penalty, and then there's stuff you can do with double moving and things like that. So, yeah, it really gives you, like, a bit of an Eldar edge. It's like you're playing
Harlequins that aren't, like, fucking pussies.
It's strength 4, T5, 2-up armor Harlequins at that stage. That are all obsec. So, that's crazy. So, I particularly like those Plasma Inceptors, because you've got 5, 3, and 3, hey?
5, 3, and 3, yeah. So again, the 5s are in there just because blast, man. I'm assuming Plasma Inceptors are going to start being like picked up and are going to become like a heavy part of the meta. So the last thing you want to be doing is running around with six man elite squads that just get shot off the board.
Yeah, for sure. And like, I was watching that game. Like, I finished my round 1 up early at the tournament, and I was watching your game against Nick Wright, who's one of our new guys, and he's got all these Orc boys. And then I come back like 20 minutes later after me and Liam have got a coffee, and there's just no Orc boys left. Like, all the Plasma Inceptors just dropped down. And I was like, oh my god. They're not even like horde clearing bolters, right? But just the blast just goes nuts on them.
Oh, dude, they're stupid. So I'd pay 60 points a model, man, for those Plasma Inceptors.
Dude, it's silly. The same thing. I had a little unit of 3, and they're just nuts. But yeah, tell us about, like you said, this army's just so fast. Like, it drops in, and not only is like the gun base of the Inceptors, if you deep strike them, when they drop in, they're not stationary. They can fly around, do whatever they want. Same with the bikes. Were you finding you were just like pushing your opponent into their deployment zone the whole weekend with this list?
I think maybe, but I think it surprised a lot of people the speed you could get out of just a foot slogging Marine army. So like your Assault Centurions, for instance, people were saying were done when the Codex got dropped, but they got a buff. They got 12-inch flamers and a 5-inch move. So you're going 5 inches. You're advancing D6 plus an inch. So all of a sudden they're going like a regular Marine. They're going like 10, 12 inches just up the board, and then you've got 3d6 discard the lowest charge strat with a +1 on the charge from the relic. So I think, it's hard to sort of conceptualize the reach and the speed of a foot-slogging Marine army that has all of those traits if you're not playing against it regularly. And I think that was probably the main thing that happened that caught people off guard. And in a couple of games, it happened where people pushed to the center, and probably against a regular Marine army, you're not going to get charged, you're not going to get touched. But with my list, you're 100% getting charged.
Yeah, and like you roll into Assault Dock and everything's just got 2 damage or more.
Oh no, everything's 3 damage, man. So aggressors go to 3 damage, neg 4, Blade Guard to 3 damage, neg 5, Assault 4 damage,
Yep.
Neg 4 and neg 5. And the reason I didn't take Outriders and Assault Intercessors is because, I mean, they're all right, but they still bounce, man. Like, Outriders, they're fast, but would I rather pay 30 points to have a Melter platform as well as the shots and lose some of the combat potency and have that, combat speciality elsewhere? And I went with yes for this list.
Yeah, no, very true. How did you find all your Melter compared to Eradicators? Because I know Eradicators are like a bit of a boogeyman at the moment.
Yeah, well, with Eradicators, they're pretty slow, so you can really play around them. If you're not that experienced and you don't pre-measure and you don't really understand where your opponent's going to be able to put fire lanes and have a reach with his army, then if you move them incorrectly, you can really easily take them out of the game. Mm-hmm. And that was the big thing. I took attack bikes instead because, let's say, terrain was rubbish, something along those lines. I don't have to be as exact with positioning the attack bikes because of their movement and their threat range is an extra, 10 to 16 inches. And additional wound as well and a bigger base for the OBSEC, which is huge.
Oh yeah, and like the additional wounds you have on that chassis just starts to get handy when you get hit with like Thunderhammer units and stuff. Like a Vanguard that comes to clean.
100%, and they get the Apothecary 6 off.
Oh yeah, man, and you're bringing back bikes. Like everyone's talking about the ATVs being crazy. Well, these guys you can actually hide in like a tiny ruin because they're so small, and you still.
The ATVs are 90 points more or something like that without the core keywords. So you're not re-rolling ones on their melters, and the gimmick is you bring an 8-wound model back, but it's like, for what? So what?
Yeah. So look, I guess we'll lean into like how these armies played secondaries because they seem inherently slightly different armies. You've got one super fast army and one super resilient army that likes to control the center of the board with the Iron Hands, Ducky. What kind of secondaries, Duck, did you pick for the Iron Hands?
So I typically took Engage on all fronts, just because the way it moved around the sides with the assassin dropping in, the Vanguard bomb running away, and it pretty much always got at least 10 points for Engage on all fronts.
Nice.
Another one would come down to what I was playing. If there was multiple sort of 4+ objectives on the table, I'd consider taking Raise, or depending on how they'd be using their characters, consider taking Assassinate. So I'd always leave one to depend on what my opponent's playing. And then being Marines, you just take the Oath. Because look, I've played I think 18 to 20 odd games with Marines since the book come out, and I've taken the Oath in every single game, and I don't think I've scored single digits with it.
Yeah. Ever. Okay. Walk us through what this crazy secondary objective is for anyone listening who doesn't know what they're hearing.
All right. So if you've been under a rock for the last couple of months, just strap yourself in. So the Oath is scored at the end of the battle turn, so end of each turn. You gain 2 points if you're within 6, if a unit is wholly within 6 of the center of the board. You gain 1 point if you don't fall back or foul a morale. And then you gain 1 point for each monster, vehicle, or character you kill.
So essentially, if you don't
4 points on offer every turn. So
if you don't fall back and you're within 6 of the center and you don't kill a thing, you just get 3 points a turn.
Yes.
Yeah, cool. So it's like a better While We Stand, or like a better Banners, like you just exist.
Yeah, and the reason I was taking like MSU units or smaller units with the exclusion of the Vanguard
Yeah.
was it was actually quite hard to farm morale. They'd either die or they farm morale.
Mhm.
So that obviously played to the secondary strength as well.
Yes, no, that's very true. Because I actually played a Dark Angels mirror match, and my opponent took that one, and it was really hard to stop the scoring on that. Like you just exist. You just walk forward. You don't fall back. You just get stuck in, stay stuck in, and then just don't fail your morale because you can't fail because you're a Dark Angel, and then you just get all your points. It's so good, and I'm wondering if in future if tournaments will allow people to use these specific secondaries, like while no one else has it except for Marines and Crons. I guess Steve and Hayden, what do you guys think about that? Of course, as Marine players, I'm sure you enjoy the stratagem, right? Oh, the fucking secondary, right?
Look, at the moment, it seems a bit far-fetched to allow them because there's not that many books out, and people can say, oh, it's an auto 15 points for Marines or whatever. I haven't really read too much into the Crons, but from what I hear, there's a pretty much auto take one from the Crons as well. But at the moment, the meta's made up of bloody Marines and Crons as it is anyway, so you might as well just let them do it. Everyone's going to get their book pretty rapidly by the looks of it.
We got Marines, Crons, 2 AdMech players, 1 Demon player, and some dude playing Noise Marines, and that's the meta. Yeah. But yeah, I guess. Sorry, Steve.
I think from a competitive game design point of view, it's not exactly fair or balanced to have certain armies or codexes get access to like auto 10 or auto 15 points. And I think it's like, from my point of view, I love having Oath because it's easy points, right? And I want to win. But from like a competitive game point of view where everything's supposed to be fair and balanced, I probably don't think it's a good idea having specific secondaries until all the codexes get access to it.
Well, if you look at a singles event, like what's stopping someone taking a Marine chapter if that's an option? It's like the inverse of a Bore the Witch on Grey Knights, right? Like it's disincentivized to take a Bore the Witch because you'll lose 10 to 15 secondaries, a game. This kind of is the other way, but that's probably a different discussion. I guess Steve, what did you pick for secondaries in most of your games? How'd you go?
Just general Marine stuff, man. So Oath, Banners, Scramblers are all pretty easily scored. Like, so with Scramblers, with small 3-man units dropping in, you've got a 2 CP strat that allows you to perform an action and still shoot. So you don't really lose any efficiency there. Oath is like an auto include for a Marine player, and also I was using Grind It Down, just because how punchy my army was. And how smaller my footprint was, it was always pretty hard for my opponents to kill more than I was killing in a game.
Yeah, that's very true. And if you can kind of pick your fights, you can keep... And like you were saying, like most of your stuff is either Gravis or it's on a 2-up or a 1-up and can get rezzed. So, and isn't a feel no pain bubble, so it's quite durable for grind. I'm comparing the stuff that you're taking to the Dark Angel list I ran, because I typically ran While We Stand, we fired on characters, took banners, then just took 1/3 one. So yeah, it kind of plays into that same archetype, doesn't it? Like you just control one portion, rack your secondaries up, and then try and kill a bit more, and just win on primary by just being better. Like you can just sometimes you can't just muscle your way through the primary.
Like 100%, but with the primary as well, I think people get a bit greedy, especially like 1 and 2 turns into the game. For your take and hold missions, you only really need to be on 1 or 2 to be scoring 5 or 10 and keeping up with the person you're playing. Generally, I find people that overreach are too aggressive in the wrong way, like i.e. grabbing 3 or 4 objectives in the first 2 turns, tend to give you their army.
Yes.
So then turns 3, 4, and 5 in a game of resources, you've got all the resources, and they're not playing with much now.
That's very true. And when 9th came out, I definitely looked at the game thinking, the game's kind of decided in turn 2 and 3, where most of your primary scoring is done. But then I realized, wow, like I'd play some games where I'd really stretch out turn 3, and my opponent would just hammer me through 4 and 5, get all their primary up, and just win. So yeah, really having that pace and pacing yourself throughout the game is pretty important. going into matchups, what kind? We all know Marines are quite good, into a lot of matchups. What kind of things? I guess we'll start with Hayden. Were you guys worried about playing, or thought might give you a hard time?
Look, I was actually worried about the Dark Angels, to be honest. Um, well, yeah, as annoying as they are, pretty much everything having permanent transhuman can be a bit of a problem. And obviously being large multi-wound, 3-wound models, big footprints, obsec, like it's not great. It's hard to play against.
Yeah. Anything else you worried about? Were you thinking about crons, or you thought you'd have that game in the bag?
No, you can sort of grind Crons out because of the how hard some of the units hit between the Blade Guard and the Vanguard. I can typically clear a unit so they don't reanimate. Because Iron Hands have a 1 CP strat to every 6 to wound is 2 wounds instead of 1.
Oh, of course they do. Yeah.
Yeah. So parking next to a Dreadnought's turned into a Lieutenant for the turn. They pretty much get almost 100% conversions from attacks to wounds.
Yeah, wow. Because so you could kind of just pick your units and just hit hard. Don't give them a reanimate, essentially, while you're in the back just healing your own guys with your super apothecary with selfless healer. So, yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
What about you, Steve? Were there any archetypes that you were worried about?
I think more of an archetype mixed with a play style. So a list for me that would cause me major problems would be a list that wouldn't come towards me and wouldn't want to interact with me.
Yeah.
And that then would leave me having to push up the board while getting shot the shit out of. And my list is very movable. Like if you decide you want to kill my ball, you can kill 5 aggressors, you can kill Blade Guard, you can kill Centurions if you start really putting your fire into them. So not so much on the day, but lists like the AdMech list that can literally point and delete while they will stay in their deployment zone and not necessarily push up the board with anything meaningful would be really some of the only matchups that I just look at and go, oh man, that's a headache.
Yeah, and did you find with the mix of the aggressors and the sense that you had, did you have enough shots to clear random little shit? If people ran little squads of Gretch and little squads of Guardsmen, did you find that you'd be able to do that with your little stuff before your big hitting units were able to commit?
Huge. But also remember that the attack bikes have 12 bolt shots each.
Yep.
You've got little bits of fire on pretty much everything. There's no fat in the list. There's nothing that's not going to be interacting and not going to be shooting every turn.
Yeah, and honestly, you can just split fire 5 Inceptors, right, and just pick up auto 5 to 6 little models with each Inceptor.
Yeah, so those Plasma Inceptors, man, if a squad's got 6 or more, they shoot 6 shots each.
Yeah.
So a 3-man Plasma Inceptor squad that costs you 150 points can drop down in someone's deployment zone and then put 18 shots out into people's backfield.
Yeah, crazy. So look, I guess with that, I'll start with Ducky again. The event we played on the weekend at Brisvegas Comics and Games was a 3-round RTT. I think it was about 27 players in the end. So Hayden came first, Steve came second, I came third. We all had 3 wins. Hayden, are there any games in particular you want to talk about? I know we don't like making it a Liam bashing show because every time we get you on, it ends up you just smashing Liam in 3 turns. But any other games you want to talk about?
Look, we might give Liam a rest for this episode. He had a rough day. we won't go into that. I had a quite good game 1 against Lachlan Gordon. He was running a Harlequin list that had a couple of boats with fusions and little player bombs and whatnot. Good guy to play against, real nice guy, real straightforward on the table. We had a nice clean game. Unfortunately, the Harlequins didn't have the sort of steam to get through the brick of Marines. But yeah, it was playing a little bit slower to bubble out. So I had the Redemptive Dreads that obviously needed to be protected from 30 plus fusion pistols.
Yes.
So just keeping a 6-inch bubble from the front of my base to the front of like the interceptors in front of them, so that the pistols could never get in range. First turn he jumped out, shot a bunch of haywire bikes. I think it's about 7 haywire bikes at a Redemptor. There was only one in range. Just popped Armor of Contempt for a 5-up Burn of Pain. And he did 8 or 9 wounds to it, and then it just walked to the back of the board, got replaced by the other one, and just spent the rest of the game healing up.
Yep.
Getting +1 to hit. So it's basically shooting back at full capacity anyway.
Yep.
And yeah, just sort of grind him out from the middle of the table.
Yeah, nice, because it's interesting when you get into that kind of Marine versus Harlequin fight, especially when you've got those exploding 6s +1 to hit. You start really putting the work in onto the player units and even the transports at that stage. And the Redemptors, can you run us through the new Redemptor, the 9th edition Redemptor, and how it's just so amazing?
Oh, the new edition Redemptor. Oh. So, if you haven't paid attention, Redemptors or Dreadnoughts in general are the business. So the Redemptive Dreadnought is kitted out with a plasma, macroplasma, something they call it, some super plasma.
Yep.
So it has that, which is D6, Strength 8, Neg 4, 2 damage. Overcharge it to Strength 9, 3 damage. It has 8 little Gatling shots at 24 inches, so Strength 5, Neg 1. It's got 2d6 frag storms at 18 inches, so 2d6 Strength 4, no negs. And then it's got a Icarus rocket pod on top, so D3 Strength 7, Neg 1, 2 damage, gets +1 hit against aircrafts. But it doesn't cop the Neg 1 against your ground targets anymore.
Nice.
And then being a Dreadnought, it is Neg 1 damage with 13 wounds.
Nice.
So it's big, it's tough, it's got a quite efficient firing platform. And with their stratagem, you can either give them reroll 1s to hit as if they're a captain, or reroll 1s to wound as if they're a lieutenant now. So it cuts down the need of a lieutenant.
That's awesome. And their combat is pretty psycho now, isn't it?
What was that, sorry?
Their combat's pretty hectic, hey? Like their melee, like, has their profile on their fist changed?
Yeah, so the fist is an absolute weapon in combat. So it's strength ×2, Neg 3, D3 +3 damage. It's good to note that these are also core, so they get all your captain, chaplain rerolls. And yeah, then they benefit from their own bubble when they pretend to be a lieutenant for a turn.
Yeah.
So, you know, when these things hit something, they typically kill it. You know, I charged one into a raider, and it did something crazy like 28 damage to it.
Bloody hell. So, yeah, I mean, certainly in that Harlequin game, he'd want to take that down pretty quickly. But on the same note, like, you're just shooting back and you're picking up bikes, and, you know, you're punching back and you're punching transports and characters, like, instantly. Like, your damage range in combat being 4 to 6 is pretty psycho.
Yeah, so he did actually charge one of the super troop masters that gets an extra attack for each turn it is.
One of the fan,
And it was turn 4, I think. And I'm like, oh, how many attacks does this little guy have in combat? And he's like, oh, 5 base and then 3 for this. So it's like 8 or 9 attacks at Neg 3, 2 damage or something. I was like, oh, okay, that's a lot of attacks. Did my 5 attacks. They do get all the chapter benefits, so they were hitting on 2s with 6s exploding. So, which just makes them sort of cascade hits and just lets them kill characters and vehicles and little multiple wound units quite well. But yeah, end up doing something like 14 damage to this poor troop master and just yeeted it across the table.
Yeah. Yeah, shit. Any other games that, any other moments in games that you want to highlight, or any interesting situations you found yourself in?
Look, I said it wasn't going to be a Liam bashing episode, but so I've had Liam. He's charged a Lord Discordant into my Primaris Chaplain, and he's charged another Lord Discordant into another unit, and he goes, will that Chaplain, with his buffs, his +1 to wound, reroll to hit, or is up, he goes, will that Chaplain kill a Lord Discordant in combat? And I clear as day said, yes, every single time. And he goes, okay, well, I'll start there. Rolls all his attacks, roll my 4-up. My 4-up invo from his Rosarius, and then he's feeling no pain. And he gets him down to 1 wound. And he goes, I did 6 wounds. I go, yeah, they have 7 wounds. And he goes, a Primaris Chaplain has 7 wounds. I said, yes. Pulled out, showed him. He goes, fucking ridiculous.
Is that the bike chaplain?
The biker Primaris Chaplain has 7 wounds, yeah. And I said, okay, he does his attacks. I swing my Chaplain attacks, and my Chaplain has 2 baller traits. So he had Exploding Sixes in combat, which piles onto the chapter one. So every 6 is 3 hits instead of 1.
Yep.
And then he can consolidate 6 inches. So pile in and consolidate 6 inches in any direction.
Yep.
So I've swung my attacks and got 2 or 3 sixes to hit, which piled out to 11 hits, wounding on 2s with the Benediction of Fury. 6s are also mortal wounds. I did something like 16 damage to this Lord Discordant.
Poor bugger.
I was like, ugh, sorry. He goes, he was quite disappointed, which obviously you can imagine.
Yeah.
I said, look, I'm quite sorry. And my turn, moved over, had 3 wounds put back on him from the Apothecary. It then charged the second Lord Discordant, punched it in the face, got it down to like 1 wound, and then consolidated 6 inches straight back so he couldn't hit me.
Oh, that's tragic.
And that was the tipping point for Liam. He was just like, I'm done, man. He's like, I'm just fucking done.
Oh, poor Liam. So Liam was playing like 40 Emperor's Children, Noise Marines, and 3 Lord Discordants, right?
Yeah, with some cultists and characters.
Oh no, poor guy. Because I know you guys were playing on the table next to me. Jeez. But yeah, I mean, Steve, any moments of games you want to talk about or discuss?
Well, first game I played, one of your mates, Nick.
Yeah.
Nick, whatever his last name is, was playing 90 Orc Boys and all these vehicles, all these Orc vehicles. Yeah, in that game, I think in 4 turns, I killed 120 Orc Boys. And all these vehicles. And I was like, that's rough. But we had like a real good, like, awesome game, like heaps of good banter, yelling at each other, giving each other crap for for me playing an OP Marine list. Second game was interesting though, playing a mirror match White Scars list.
Oh, cool.
Seeing more of a standard White Scars list. So he had 2 Outrider squads, 3 Assault Intercessor squads or whatever, Eradicators and Inceptors, Plasma Inceptors with Blade Guard. Mm-hmm. And just seeing sort of the difference when someone rocks up with 500 points put into like troops and Outriders, as opposed to my list where I had that sort of those points invested in other like specialists, punchy or shooter units, and really once the Eradicators and Plasma Inceptors were shot off the board, all of a sudden that White Scars list has like no teeth. As opposed to sort of my style list where if you drop a 5-man Plasma Inceptor off the board, oh no, I've got more. Or you drop my aggressors, it's like I still got Assault Centurions.
Yes.
The other thing that I felt the people that played me's pain was when I hit his Blade Guard with my Blade Guard, and my Blade Guard failed to kill a single one of his Blade Guard. And then he promptly punched me in the face in return and wiped a squad of 5 Blade Guard. And I was like, that's how regular people feel.
Oh, jeez, yeah. It's great when every once in a while you cop the Marine treatment on yourself. It's like, oh, damn, I lost half my
Oh, man, 4 invo saves are so swingy.
Yep.
If you have a day, it's like, well, that's it.
Oh, jeez, yeah. But you got through that game all right. And then who'd you play in the final round?
Final game, I played a guy called Jake from the Sunny Coast. Real, like everyone I played, man, at the RTT were like really, really awesome. Yeah. Because I'm a fairly, casual, play with intent sort of guy. If you forget something or you've made an obvious error and it's obvious you would have, an aura should have been sort of in range or something along, or you should have moved on to objective or something like that. Like I'm more than happy to let people do that like retroactively. Yeah. And all the games I played, that was sort of, such a good vibe and a good way to play, a competitive game. So in the last game, I played Black Templars, believe it or not. And his sort of list was built around a 10-man Terminator brick that, so Black Templars, a litany gives them a 5-up feel no pain, they get like extra attacks, they hit a +1 hit, like full rerolls from their chapter master and whatnot. So now you've got a brick that's running around with a 4-up invo, 5-up feel no pain, 3-wound Terminators that they can be rezzed and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Plasma Inceptors and Centurions and Blade Guard don't care about a 4-up invo and a 5-up feel no pain.
Yeah, very true.
And that's where the having, because you can play board control-y, hard to shift in two ways, right? You play an elite style army that do it, like Custodes or Terminators, like Dark Angels, or you play mass horde, and I think that's where the like elite sort of board control, hard to shift style falls down to mass horde, because at the end of the day, man, you roll 3s, you roll 2s on your saves, it just dies.
Yeah, very true.
Whereas at least with 180 gaunts or 100 and whatever guard or orcs, it's like, of course they died. That's what they're supposed to do.
Yeah.
So, Steve, how do you feel about losing the chaplain reroll to wound litany?
So I wasn't using it. I didn't think we could use the litany from the books, the Faith 3 books. Okay. So I was using +1 to wound exclusively in all my games.
Yeah, that's fair.
And again, that's pretty bonkers on your 5-man Plasma Inceptors or your aggressors. But with your Blade Guard, if you want +1 to wound, you can run the Khan. He gives +1 to wound in combat.
That's pretty crazy.
And that's sort of like I think the standard White Scars build is like 2 Blade Guard bricks and the Khan run around like bashing people.
Yeah. Man, those Mastercrafted Power Swords just go so hard now.
That's stupid. It's the whole book's stupid, man. When everything's 3 damage, it's like what is this? It's like they're all Smash characters in a unit.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess moving forward, are you guys thinking about mixing anything up in your list, or are you pretty happy with this, or are you going to move over to a different archetype, like starting with Ducky again? What are you guys thinking?
I'm actually looking at Black Templars as much as people are a bit of a meme. They're actually good. They can, one of the relics being able to put a unit into combat dock where they want to be every turn is good. They're still a Marine, so they're still good inherently just on paper before you start, spice them with different chapters. Mm-hmm. I'm not currently, or I haven't taken a Psycho in any of my lists at the moment anyway, so that's not going to be a detriment of not being able to take that.
Yep.
So I still want to have that option open if I'm playing against, GKs or, like T-Suns or stuff that spams a lot of Psychos just to take the secondary. Mm-hmm. So I think the restrictions that come with Black Templars aren't really going to affect me that much.
Yeah,
so that's what I'm looking at.
That's pretty cool. What do you think that... because obviously with all Marines, you're still fairly durable now with the ridiculous Apothecary. What other things would Templars add to the mix? Like, are they going to help you out in combat with their special characters? I know they have some characters that natively give exploding 6s, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then obviously once they're in the combat dock, they get 6s to hit auto wound.
Yeah.
So not having to worry about putting points into characters like lieutenants to help convert wounds, because if you're rerolling 1s to wound, statistically 6s to auto wound is the same sort of conversion. So in my mind, I don't need a lieutenant.
Yep.
Which means more characters like the Empress Champion or the Chapter Champion who can just punch people in the face.
Yeah, that guy's no joke when he's buffed up.
Yeah, he definitely gets stuff done.
Yeah, man. But yeah, I guess that kind of rounds it out, guys. Actually, Steve, sorry, what are you going to mix up about your list, mate?
Oh,
fuck! I'm sorry, bro.
Okay,
Just leaving you behind.
Right,
yeah.
Steve doesn't get input.
No.
As a mid-tier player, I don't get any input. It's okay.
But yeah, man.
I'm probably gonna double down on some more Assault Centurions, man.
You reckon?
Squeeze maybe a 5-man squad and see how they run. Yep. Running around with 10 flamers, punching in the face with like 20-something 3 damage attacks first turn. Wow. I really think probably Assault Centurions and Attack Bikes are some of the best White Scars units you can be taking. Just in regards to how hard they hit, and how you can actually get them in the game with the White Scars chapter tactics or whatever.
Yeah.
But then again, like with Marines, like there are no real bad choices in that codex.
Yeah, like you could take a lot of things and be good with it, but it's really cool you're leaning into those units because we're not seeing many people take like Sense. Like everyone's saying, Sense had their last hurrah in 8th, but I think they could be pretty solid with what you're saying. And like those attack bikes, for anyone listening, definitely try them out. They're pretty wild. And it doesn't even need to be White Scars, right? You can just run them as like any random chapter, and they'll put in work.
Wait, if you run them as Raven Guard, Duck was saying he was playing around with, don't they get pluses to hit characters and whatnot?
Yeah, so Raven Guard, their super doctrine is in TAC Doc, they get +1 to hit and wound against characters.
Mm-hmm.
Which, back in 8th edition, everyone was doing with, like sniping characters and eliminators. But now that you don't see them as much, and you're seeing some, characters like Magnus and your Super Lord of Change and that sort of stuff get around. When the attack bikes start shooting on 2s, win on 2s, it's the business.
Yeah, you get pretty close to dropping that Lord of Change at that stage. Bloody hell.
Well, and then even you like your Blade Guard running in, getting hitting on 2s, winning on like 4s at the worst.
Yeah, wow. That is pretty crazy.
It's a lot of damage.
Yeah, well, we'll see when these supplements start coming out. If they tone this stuff down. Like, do you guys see the Rights of War Warlord trait as a bit of an issue, or you guys reckon it's all right? Because I think it's pretty fucking crazy.
I think it's like, again, like one of the dumbest things they've ever done. Because the Rights of War Warlord trait was like a reroll 1 aura for something.
Yeah, we were talking about this. We were talking about this on the weekend. It used something just completely useless, right?
Yep.
Like before. Yeah.
But it's
it
like
used to be pick a unit they got obsec. So the Sally's characters used to like run up and give it to themselves. So you used to give it a unit of non-obsec. Now it's just a bubble.
Which is crazy. I mean, it's like, why would you take troops? That's basically like every other codex and every other army has to take a troop tax of some description. And with a Marine codex now, you can literally just look at it and go, well, why would I take troops?
Yeah, dude, just take a Deathwing Terminator.
Well, an assault intercessor squad is 95 points, right?
Yeah.
Or 135 points gets you another 3-man Blade Guard squad.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are we doing?
Yep. Bloody hell. So, look, hopefully there's some change on the way. I would like some kind of fix where, if you're playing a supplement like Blood Angels or something, or Wolves, you can't take the Codex specific traits and you've got to take your own traits or something like that, because you've got to keep it under wraps. There's just so many interlocking and interweaving rules at this stage. But oh well, looks like we're winning, right?
I mean, the flip side is every other codex might end up with something like that. So now you're playing a game where everything's obsec and no one takes troops, and then you're playing a game where everyone can max out secondaries without having to specifically build for it. So then it goes back to a game where you're just trying to shoot each other off the board.
Yeah, because Necrons have the detachment that's all obsec, for example. So,
yeah, and then even Orcs have it still.
Yeah, with Death Skulls, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting. I mean, we'll see how it goes, and I'm not convinced that giving every army an ability to get their whole army obsec's the funnest thing for the game. I think having a reason to take your troops as like a core central unit's kind of nice, but we'll fucking see. But yeah, I mean, anything else you guys want to talk about or plug before we finish up?
No, I'm pretty good, mate.
Yeah.
I just want to give a shout out actually to like Eric and Dan, so the Art of War boys that are up in Brisbane. So like they basically spent a lot of their time like helping me sort of develop my game and get better at the game, and without sort of like, because it's at the top tier 40k level across the board, it can be pretty like elitist, and top players tend to stay away from like mid-tier or low tier players, just in terms of coaching, because coaching is difficult or whatever. So the fact that probably the top team in the world is coming out and starting to like try and help low and mid-tier players develop their game like properly is a pretty big thing to do. So like Eric and Dan and Aaron up here are like really, really good guys, and they play the game in like the really like the correct way, the way it should be, and in the spirit it should be played, which I think is quite rare or quite difficult for guys at a high level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then like a big shout out to like you guys as well. Just like normal bloke podcast, like spreading Brisbane 40k throughout the world is pretty cool.
Oh, thanks, man. Thanks, appreciate it. And look, I mean, I'm good mates with like Eric and Aaron and Dan, and every time I've played them, it's been like the best game, whether it's just a practice or an event. And we've had a little sit down afterwards. We've talked about things that we could have done to make it a better game, or make it closer. And yeah, that kind of feedback is really, really good to have from people who are at the top. It sets an awesome example for everyone else at the event and everyone else trying to get to that level. But yeah, guys, thank you so much for coming on, and it's great to have you on, Steve. It's good to talk Marines and Ducky once again. Always a pleasure. So look, if you like the episode, everyone, give us a like on Facebook, subscribe to us on iTunes. If you really liked it, leave us a review. It helps new listeners find us. But yeah, hope you guys have a good rest of the week, and see you later.